In this one show, we've seen statistics showing a complete lack of knowledge surrounding the Holocaust and World War II. Coupled with this, we've seen the anti-Semitism is rising around the world, according to not one but two major reports. And even more alarming is that this anti-Semitism is translating into concrete violent actions against Jews. We often hear that education, and specifically Holocaust education, is the key to curbing this phenomenon. But is that truly the case? And just how effective is Holocaust education, especially in light of these figures? Joining us via Skype to discuss this issue is Dr. Elana Heideman, the Executive Director of the Israel Forever Foundation and an expert on Holocaust studies and anti-Semitism. Welcome.
Thank you.
So, how important is Holocaust education as a tool to combat anti-Semitism?
I think that it's a fundamental tool that everyone should not only have access to, but should also know how to use appropriately. We have today a wealth of programs and institutions that are set up to provide a variety of ways that we can learn about the Holocaust. And there are more and more states that are mandating Holocaust education. It is an important tool. The question really is, how are we incorporating the different lessons that enable us to translate our understanding of the Holocaust to fighting the type of anti-Semitism that we are facing today?
And yet we see that the Holocaust education has failed in many countries, right? Where despite its inclusion in the curriculum, anti-Semitism is still on the rise.
Well, because if you couch the Holocaust in universalist theories, and you also approach it from, for example, the perspective just of a world war or the accounting of numbers, then basically you are minimizing the impact that it can have on the human sensibility. Meaning it's a fascinating study of human behavior, all of the elements of the Holocaust. So perhaps we have to reanalyze how the resources that we've been given, from survivor testimonies to the various types of educational programming, how are we encouraging discussion amongst the students that helps them solidify knowledge, not only what they think about it? Much of the education is very empathetic. It's teaching to consider yourself. What would you do if you were in a ghetto? Frankly, no one can put themselves in that situation, imagine it through their imagination alone. It almost belittles the reality that was faced within the ghettos and certainly within the concentration and extermination camps. I think that the problem is, however, they've taken the theoretical questions out of context, that now the context itself is not known. We see from the study of Austria, Canada, the United States, there is Holocaust education in all of these places. But people don't even know what Auschwitz or Birkenau was. How can we expect them to know of the tens of thousands of other satellite camps and ghettos and various factories that were a part of the Nazi mechanism for torture of human life?
Now I'm curious, do most countries today teach Holocaust education?
I think there's a debate. There are an increasing number of countries who teach Holocaust education, but there is no standard for the methods by which it is taught. Yad Vashem does a tremendous job training Holocaust educators from around the world who come to their summer program. There are other such institutions that also try to put out programming to help educators feel more equipped. We at Israel Forever provide the type of resources that actually help the educators in the classroom teach the content. Meaning not everybody knows how to relate to it. How do you teach about murder without being relegated to this number 6 million? It isn't about 6 million, and it isn't about just one, like the kinds of programs where it's about researching one individual. It's a matter of understanding, how does this relate to me? Not if I were in that situation, but for the very fact that I live in its aftermath. Many people, of course, translate those lessons universalistically. They want it to be a global message for all of humanity. Unfortunately, we've done that to such an extent that we have again and again enabled people to erase the Jew from Holocaust memory. Perhaps another element of more effective Holocaust education would be to emphasize, why the Jew? What is it about 2,000 years of our existence that causes this hate. And I do say cause. It doesn't mean that the Jew is to blame. Like we hear rhetoric today again and again, we're to blame for the hatred against us.
Well, speaking of today, we started this week off by commemorating the Holocaust. And now from this great tragedy, we're progressing through the week to celebrate the establishment of the State of Israel. And today we're seeing a new form of anti-Semitism in essence, which is anti-Zionism. How can we combat this phenomenon, much in the same way as we would normal anti-Semitism, or do you suggest something else?
So I actually think that it's related to the previous statement of keeping the Jew as a part of what it means to understand the Holocaust as a historical event. I think that is one element, because then we can dissect. Right now, there are people who are claiming Hitler left Jews alive so that they could always know why he killed them. This is an important lesson for us as we move towards the anti-Zionism claims. Certainly, there are legitimate claims that people have, criticisms of behaviors of particular governments or other actions. However, to denigrate and to demonize an entire nationalistic movement of Zionism, which is thousands of years old, only demonstrates that the Jewish rights to that nationalism are being negated, ignored, denied, and erased. In essence, much like the Jew in Holocaust memory, if we want to strengthen the value of the education that we are putting out to the next generation, we have to draw the connection with these current events. Not because there is a similarity between Gaza and a concentration camp, but because we have to know what was a concentration camp, how did we reach that point, what was social involvement, and what can we do so that we can implement those lessons in fighting the continued call for the destruction of the Jewish people. Today, it is anti-Zionism. Yesterday, it was anti-Semitism. Before that, it was Jew hatred, before people became embarrassed to call it what it was. And I think we need to more and more call it what it is and empower people to stand up against it, because a lot of people today are just too afraid to do so, or they say, this will pass. Okay. And we've done that before.
Great. Well, Dr. Heideman, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us today.
Thank you so much for having me.